Dougie, what up, sir?
What's up, guys?
Crypto's dead, but whoa, it's not dead. I'm not saying it's dead, but it's dead. But it's hold on a second here. Like I didn't say it's dead. Like what do you don't? I just love probably the mental model you're going through. Is like, what is the right title for this? And you're like, yeah, fuck, that's the one.
I mean, when I clicked into it, I was like, oh boy, here we go. And then read it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. Same page.
Okay, great.
I assume everyone had like the same kind of reaction to the title. It definitely was a bit more like negative and depressing sounding than the actual article itself. But that also was somewhat of the intention. I'm not going to lie. Like when people see that, it's a kind of like a oh shit moment. And then you read it. And I'm glad that people actually seem to read it and not just like assume the title was, what the article was like truly saying. Because that was a concern of mine. Is this, I got people dunking on me saying like, no, you're wrong. You're the 1,000th person to say this. Probably more people have said it, and it usually marks the pico bottom of like the chart. But it's actually far from indicating like I think what a lot of people assume the title said. And so it was a little creative tactic that definitely seemed to do the trick.
I feel like it hit. It probably just got a lot of people nodding. Even the title, right? I think there's that sense that crypto is dead is a very real sense felt by many, and I don't think that necessarily means that, or people take that to mean that this asset class is over with. Yeah, I think it is sort of like the death of one version and the birth of something new. So I think you captured the zeitgeist.
Yeah,
well.
I mean that's why I wrote it. Like I kind of wrote a tweet after saying why I wrote the article, and it wasn't because like I mean this is something I've been grappling with pretty much all year. But I realized when I finally started talking about it publicly with like other people. Everyone's kind of feeling the same thing. I'm far from the only person to kind of feel this way. And so again, I think the whole reason why this article like got the reception that it did is because I just said the quiet part out loud and like kind of put words to what people are actually feeling. But it's a good thing.
Let's just capture the TLDR of the thesis for people who haven't read it because they're put off by your aggressive title.
For sure. The thesis is that like, I've been in the space for a number of years now. I've been an investor in the space full time for like 4 years. And since I've been involved, like we've always kind of focused on our own little insular bubble. And the default assumption was always that the whole world would just become crypto native. We wouldn't have to go to the world would come to us. And I think now, many years later, it's pretty clear, at least to me, that the people who probably would have joined the industry already have based on like the crypto native niche and culture. And we've now hit a saturation point. This was the first quote unquote cycle where it felt like people didn't make it and a lot of people struggled. And the bubble actually seems to be shrinking in terms of like the size of our space. And so there's also the other part of like, traditional fintechs and other institutions like actually coming into our space. And I think many people feel like they are taking the opportunities that should have been ours. And so we have like a real competitor or foe, it feels like for a lot of people. I don't view it necessarily that way, but I definitely think I view it sometimes like that. And so the whole point is like, we either choose to meet the world where they're at and build products that like the rest of the world actually wants to use, or we're going to remain this very niche thing that probably gets left behind in many ways. We're going to see mass adoption take place, but we're not going to be a part of it. And I'm using we as like crypto natives. I do identify as someone who is crypto native. And so that's what the whole article is saying. It's a long article. It says a lot more than that, but like that's what it boils down to essentially.
I mean, what do you think this tactically means for founders in crypto? So we were at Breakpoint last week, talked to a bunch of, big category leaders within crypto and, all have their sights on, what's coming next, institutional adoption. And, we asked a bunch of questions around just like organizationally and like tactically, what does this mean for you? And kind of got different answers there. So I'm curious what you think the founders you work with, like, what do they need to change to go after this new opportunity or morphing version of what it means to be crypto native?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think so. I first want to start with saying, like, I don't believe it's like a waste of time to start with, targeting crypto natives in terms of like your initial users, your initial customer base. Like, it makes a lot of sense. Businesses should go after their first like proximate customer base. What I am saying is that there needs to be a plan and strategy for going beyond that, because I do feel like, from my experience as someone who's talked to a lot of founders, it feels like the strategy begins and ends with like capturing crypto And when you ask questions around like, okay, so what happens next, there isn't like nearly as like sound of an answer as there is for like how I'm going to win crypto. And so I think like that's where, you know, I say in the article, like it's about the intent. It all starts with the intent. Once you realize you need to go beyond this like bubble, I think people have more answers than they think they actually have right now. You know, what needs to change is different for every company. Ultimately, it's, you know, the biggest companies in the world are the biggest companies in the world because they're really talented at understanding who their next customer is and how they're going to win them. And there's not one universal answer for that. But like one thing I will say I've seen, which I really love, like Mads from Fact Machine came on last week, and I'm an investor in his company. So soft shield there, I guess. But like they are one of the first companies I spoke to who had a really amazing strategy around going on TikTok, Instagram, non-traditional crypto native venues and getting in front of people. And I think that's going to be a common theme. I'm already seeing it. Like they're not the only ones to like really be thinking about this in a strong way. But I'm like probably closely home for that one. That's gonna be a big part of it. Like, you know, internet companies have social media strategies beyond crypto Twitter. And I think we're going to have to embrace that. That's one like small example, I think, of like what we're going to see happen a lot more in our industry.
I'm curious how your investing or your firm's investing has changed as you sort of like over this last year. You know, you're grappling with this sort of shift. I think all investors are kind of grappling with that shift. How's that changed as far as the types of companies, founders you're backing?
Yeah, so a lot has changed over the years, without a doubt. I think the way that we started kind of recognizing this change and, you know, behaving in response to it is we began looking for just new ideas, things that have never existed before in crypto. And that sounds like super like, yeah, of course, that's what you have to do as an investor. But like, there's actually a lot of like derivative products in our space that have performed really, really well over the years. And funds have like made a lot of money by just like picking the new derivative on a new chain. And I think like those days are largely over. And so like we have been just looking for new things. We care to a degree which chain it on and which chain an app's on. It certainly matters, but like if you don't fundamentally bring something new, then like we don't really have much of a reason to now invest in you, is our view. And so we believe that like there are products that can really do well in crypto and then do well in the rest of the world. And so it's one, having a new idea, and two, like how we invest, we ask questions around like how you're going to go after the rest of the world. And if you don't have a good strategy, it doesn't mean we're automatic pass. It's just like we're going to be pressing you to, you know, better understand what that looks like for you. And I feel like I'm saying things that are like someone on the outside would hear this and be like, obviously. I had friends text me and be like, dude, I can't believe you had to write this. Like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, yeah, that's actually like, no, I'm not kidding. Like, unfortunately, this is like the way a lot of us have been trained to think, because like it has been lucrative to kind of live within our bubble for, you know, the history of the industry. But yeah, I mean, for us, it's just like looking for original things, no more derivatives, having a clear strategy beyond crypto. And then ideally like actually solving a problem for people. That's
are you investing in more L1s? Like, is that an opportunity going forward? I know you guys did, I think, Mega ETH, but is that like a thing that you think would be interesting to you guys in the future?
I'll never say never. I've, you know, learned the hard way. You don't say never. I think it would have to look fundamentally different than L1s that exist today. Because if you're going to tell me you're just going to build Solana, then why should I invest in the next Solana? But I do believe there's a world where the role of an L1 does fundamentally shift. I think a lot of L1s are actually asking themselves this right now. And I was talking about this yesterday, is like, do some L1s start looking like Amazon? Or do some L1s just like truly want to just exist in the bottom of the stack and never really take an active role further up the stack? And I do think a role for a new L1 could be making that move in a more pronounced way and taking a bet on how actively involved they're going to be in like building at the app layer. It's like Hyperliquid kind of, you know, like they built the, you know, big application, and then now there's a Hyper EVM, which we can argue over how that's done, but like they are kind of setting that tone.
Is that kind of the vertical specific chain versus general purpose chain opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, I view Hyperliquid as an app that happens to have its chain. So I wouldn't even put Hyperliquid in the category I'm saying. I'm thinking more of like, you know, AWS style L1. Like, is that something that makes sense? It might be the dumbest idea in the world, don't get me wrong, but like that's what I'm thinking through in terms of like what would be the L1 that I would invest in. It is someone who's radically taking a different approach than what the incumbents are.
Well, and the interesting conversation that I'm hearing right now is sort of around asking the question if the application layer is actually it's again a dumb thing to say, it's obvious, but more interesting to these L1s, right? So like, does Solana actually have their own trading app at some point? You know, Base and the Base discussion around this whole thing. And so, I mean, I'm assuming what you mean by Amazon, like it's like you're sort of owning and integrating the full stack
Exactly.
in a very, very big market in a very big way.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I can tell you the new networks that I'm working with, the ones who have like yet to launch, are thinking through these things very, very deeply. And the common question a lot of them are asking is like, where does the line exist? We know that we have to vertically integrate to a degree, but we also don't want to step on everyone's toes. So how do we do both? Or like not do
Seems like a
other?
kiss of death right there at some level, though. Like if you want to go be a general purpose blockchain, I mean, I think this is the issue Base is having right now. Like people feel
Right.
like their Coinbase and Base are competing with them in some level, and so like, why would I go build there?
Yep.
You know, I'm not sure if that is completely fair, but I think that's what I'm hearing at least. So, but yeah, so maybe getting stuck in the middle seems like a messy thing, but
it's a very delicate balance you have to find, and I don't know if anyone's found it yet, honestly.
I think you just need to understand or have very clear narratives for what you are and the opportunity you're going after. I feel like that's the challenge Base is in right now, is it kind of looks like a general purpose chain Solana competitor, but they're also eating away at a lot of the things through Coinbase and the Base app that you would want people to go build.
Yep.
So it's like, just tell me what I'm supposed to go build here if I want to go build here. And I think that'll make everyone's lives easier.
That's actually funny enough, like kind of what I've concluded as well. It's like, just define the boundaries. And I think there would be people who are willing to build right outside of it and be very happy doing so. But if you're someone who wants to live within that boundary, like you go somewhere else.
Right.
And so I think like that's the step one of like what
I just have zero trust that, I mean, you have to be dumb if you think that a founder and a chain says, hey, here's my boundaries and we're not going to move out of that, and then trust
that's a good point
to move out of it. Like, I think you're either building general purpose or you're going to vertically integrate everything. I think maybe some of the ones that have like if Solana takes a very, like the Solana app, maybe they've earned that right in that there's just enough value and ecosystem there you can kind of like position against it. But I don't know if something.
But then you wonder what Phantom does, for example, if that was definitely to happen.
Right.
100%. They certainly have a pretty strong grip on the end user, and so if they see Solana trying to take that from them, are they just going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, go ahead, like you're right, like this is rightfully yours? Like absolutely not. Like they're gonna dig their claws in and fight right back.
God, I hope this happens. It would be some of the best, my type of drama, strategic business decision drama. Let's go.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah, the totally Brandon stream mid 2026 after Solana launches their app would be great.
Make 2026 interesting again.
Yeah.
I want to just do a time check because I think we had a hard stop at the top of the hour. Are you?
Yeah, I got to run a couple minutes, but I can be a bit late.
What else you got for me, Josh?
I mean, I'm interested in did you get any fair criticism or pushback to the post?
So someone yesterday wrote a pretty good response. I kind of fired back with my own, and by fired back, I mean I just like kind of challenged some of their assumptions. I thought he did a good job, like providing some counter views. I do think, like, unfortunately, there was one part of his argument that a lot of it rested on that I just like don't think is correct, which is he was like, we've captured like 500 million global users. And for me, I draw a very fine line between a holder of a token and a user.
And a wallet and a user.
Exactly. And then he also challenged, my point about like incentives. And my argument isn't that incentives are a sin. It's that like incentives without a product are. And that's like what a lot of things in crypto actually are, just an incentive scheme and nothing more. And so like, no, I don't think I've actually received like any challenging responses that like I haven't been able to like kind of fend off, but I want to. Like, if I can say one thing, like I want people to, like, pardon my language, beat the shit out of this, because like I wrote this because I want us to all just like cut it and start debating things in public and challenge each other and end up winning. Like, all of us have spent like the better part of like the last decade in this industry, and there's many people who I want to see win, myself included, quite frankly. And I can tell you that like I feel like we're unfortunately not going in that direction right now, and that's why I wrote this. And if I got pushback, like, great, but let's go act on it now.
I mean, I was early into Web 2 and saw the transition that I think we're going through in crypto here, which is between sort of like the broad overly optimistic early believer set, and then into like the, oh, here's the business models that clearly dominate, and the structure of the entire market and attention kind of changes. And I think many struggle to make that shift, but I think what's clear is that if you're able to make that shift, there's such huge economic opportunity on the other side of it that
100%.
it's very, very worth trying to go figure out how to go make that shift. So whether you're a builder and you have a product in market, or you're about to, or whatever, I think, these types of conversations setting you up for like, okay, well, where is the puck actually going here so that I can have a good long career? And it's, probably not in the ways that it has been so far. I mean, that's would be my sort of description of this last cycle, was like, we got everything we wanted to, but we were on just many people just wrong position for it. They had expectations that are just not realistic going forward, and it's just going to look different. I did have a question for you. You wrote an article back in the spring, I believe. Is that when you wrote this article? Talking about TGEs.
Yeah.
Obviously, ICOs, TGEs, all sort of back in narrative right now in very different ways. I'm curious how your thoughts have changed over the year. Did we solve some of these problems, or are we still fucked?
I think we're making meaningful strides.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely still a lot to be fixed. But I look at, what MetaDAO has been able to do, and I think they're a step in the right direction in terms of like, we still have these acquisitions like Axelar recently, where like clearly the equity was more valuable than the token. And that is a big problem, I think, for like
neither were very valuable, to be fair, in that case.
Yes.
Yeah.
But one was completely left out, and there were people, we can argue over like the details of it, but as a whole, like what MetaDAO stands to do is like very clearly define what the rights of token holders are. And I think it's a huge step in the right direction, because if people are going to be investing with confidence into things that live on chain like tokens, then it should be, in my opinion, very transparent in terms of what you have rights to and what you don't. And I'm not here to say like there shouldn't be a equity component or not, but let's just start with like defining which sits in which, so people can evaluate that. I would ideally probably like to see just one thing, but I don't know in terms of like the reg and compliance side of that. Is that possible? That's not my kind of thing, but I'm seeing meaningful strides with things like MetaDAO.
I think like if we look back on 2025, I think the big shift is that we can actually have conversations about defining these things without the level of fear that would have brought up for founders, right? Like, again, I think this is, as much as there's been a challenge in people updating their mental models around how you need to win in crypto in 2025, I think there's just still been this massive overhang of, regulations, uncertainty driving certain weird mashup ways of actually talking about a token, issuing a token, et cetera. And I think, by far the biggest thing we can do is get rid of that. Clearly, when they've done that in the stablecoin space, we can see just the growth and explosion of interest there from the broader market. And I think we'll see the same thing around these broader assets as well. All right, Dougie, we'll let you get back to your life, man. I'm sure people have read that post. If you haven't read that post, get on in there. It's a compared to the title, it is a very bullish read, in my opinion.
I mean, it should be so optimistic for founders reading. Like, the big prizes haven't been won yet.
Exactly.
Right? Like if you talk to TradFi and the numbers that exist over there, like regardless of how big some of these on-chain, like the TVL, these protocols on-chain have, it's nothing compared to what's out there. So I think that's the right way to read it. Yeah.
Bigger market.
There's a reason why companies like Stripe are moving into our space in a meaningful way. It's not because they see, a 6-figure opportunity. They see something very, very, very large. And I am very bullish for the industry for exactly the reasons we just discussed. Mm-hmm. Those who actually recognize where the puck is going and capitalize are going to win very big. And I just hope to be a part of that in some way.
You and me both, baby. You and me both. All right, man. Appreciate your time. Great to chat with you. And
yeah, guys,
have a wonderful holiday season. And let's go win in 26.
Let's go. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Dougie.
Peace, dude.
All right, guys.